China Uber Alice is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito, coming soon to the Capitola Mall food court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum! And a very good afternoon to you. I'm Bill Graff, along with my co-host Nan Su, a senior reporter from the Epoch Times, and Amy Howe, who is a survivor of the re-education camps from the Chinese Cultural Revolution under Chairman Mao. We have a wonderful program for you today. One of our guests will be a familiar voice to you. Michael Olson will join us, and we'll be talking about China itself. But first, let's introduce Nan Su. How are you today, sir?
Oh, great, Billy. And we have a lot of things to talk about today. Of course, everyone knows the Earth Day Summit that's taking place for the world leaders joining together in the virtual space to talk about the carbon dioxide emission deduction is going on today. Now, the news that we have learned that is that President Biden has committed that the United States is going to make the carbon dioxide emission down to 50% of the 2005 level by the year of 2030, while at the same time, China's leader, Chairman Xi, make no commitment. Now, let me repeat. China's Chairman Xi make no commitment rather than saying that China is going to put more restrictions on the use of coal for power plant. I mean, it's not even measurable. That's the kind of commitment with China. So we're going to talk about that. Why year after year after year after years of negotiation with China, we are going nowhere in every aspect? Why do we still count on the promise from Chinese leaders? So that's the topic of today. Of course, before we jump into our discussion today, first we are going to have our usual segment, Amy Howe. Amy spent more than a decade of time in re-education camp because of a cultural revolution under Chairman Mao. So, Amy, what are you going to bring us today?
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep the story, continue the story last week. The love story, Lei and Mei, we call the Weathered Camellia. And so, refresh everybody's memory. Last week, I'm talking about arriving Kunming, and in the train station, I met Mei over there. So she took me to her home, and her mother, original, they all from Shanghai. So she cooked the homemade food. So I feel like I just arrived home. Because that journey to Kunming from Shanghai by train is 4 days and 3 nights. And there's no place to sleep. We just sit in the hard wooden bench for that long. So finally arriving in Kunming. But Mei's father was a professor, also dean of the school. And then Cultural Revolution, Red Guard beat him to death. And so kicked them out the house. They used to have a house, 2-story house. And now she and her mother live in the, used to be a corridor of the building in the lobby. And so it's just 2 single bed there, so they cannot let me to sleep there. And so she told me, she said, I had to take you to Lei's home. And Lei's mother is work for the school as a cook, so it's like working class. So they didn't kick her out of the house. So she had a little old courtyard house, and maybe you can sleep over there. And she told me, and during the red guy, they went to her home and they took all the things away, and she kept a couple of pieces of furniture in Lee's place. And that time she was staying there too. And now Lee's in jail. And actually, it's not the government jail. It's like private detention house. So they kept him there. So he said that maybe you can stay there overnight, and also you can meet Lee's mother. And so actually, it's Lee's adopted mother. He said Lee was adopted. And anyway, I got there. It's a very old place. The house, no plumbing, everything. You had to go too far away to the public bathroom. And then the water they use is from a big old well. So to get the water out of there, so and to wash it, to drinking, cooking, everything. So anyway, and I said that, I supposed to leave on tomorrow morning, and they transfer us to the truck. There's no bus for us. For 6 days, 5 nights journey to the village near Burma border. So, and the truck, we get on, we'll be sleeping at the night just underneath the truck. So that's what I supposed. I said, I'm supposed to go tomorrow morning. And she said, I have a plan. I want you to meet, to see Lee. I said, you think it's possible? She said, I manage that. Maybe you can see him before you go to the village. So I think about that. I said, well, I don't know how long they're going to keep him in the jail. So I said, yes, I want to see him. And so she arranged, she said, let's do something. He said that I cannot leave the mother and cannot take you there because we had to make up the story saying you are Lee's long-lost sister. Because Lee was adopted, so that means his original family and sister wanted to see him, so they maybe will let you in. So, and I got there, the guy, actually just kind of joke, and the guy was asking me, but they speak a Yunnan dialogue. I speak Shanghai dialogue and also the Mandarin. So immediately, and they think I was lying, not from his original family. And so they said, no. So they also asked, who are you? You tell who sent you here or something. So I was so scared, I immediately ran away. And so
India.
So Mei was waiting for me there. And so she said that, it's so too bad you cannot meet him again in Kunming. But, Lee told me to entertain you, at least show you, and those places he talked about in the letter he wrote to you about the Yunnan, about the Kunming. So I said, well, I had to go. What I'm going to do? He said, that I just found out, and after you left Shanghai and government, they sent a vice, what they call that time in the Shanghai government, all lead by the Liberation Army. And so it's like an officer, vice commissar of the Shanghai the army. And so he was bring a bunch of people to checking on. And we arrived, and then and also the Yunnan government was asking Shanghai government and to helping them to place, this 1,000 kids. So they just come in and say by fly here, say that. So they will say, I will take you there. You just say you will get sick. You have to take a couple of days in Kunming, and then when they're gonna go down there, so you just join them. Probably you don't have to take a truck because they at least have a bus, so you will join them to go there. So I think that was a good plan, but I was sad because I couldn't see Lee. But the Mei said that she will do everything what Lee was promised me. But I was still young, I was very much interested in the place and this exotic place. So I said, okay, just whatever you arrange, I do it. And so she arranged to take me to look at all those beautiful places, especially at the 1,000-years-old Camellia tree, and in Kunming. That time in the March was a blossom. That's quite a thing, So, and then after that, they sent me back to looking for this group, the leaders group. Mm-hmm. And they will stay in the hotel, of course. It's the best hotel in by called the Jie Lake in Kunming. And so I found it there. So they joined, and they say that they have this master fund is from in representing the working class from Shanghai, and so they will supervise and all the send-down kids. So I can join him up, and they say they're gonna take a bus to go down there. So I did and get there. So then back to their love story. So I left that probably a couple of years. Of course, I was in the village and working, and so over there it was basically not much communication. Only you can write a letter, but the probably take from Shanghai. It took about a month, the mail, and then from Kunming probably in 2 weeks or something like that. And then so for 2 years, I think I only received a couple of letters, and from Mei, and I keep asking her about what's happened to Lee, and she was talking about that, just less and less, and almost no information. So I don't know what's happening. So third year, and even though we have a very harsh labor, and also is no freedom to traveling, but I still think that the purpose of I wanted to go to Yunnan is to see the beautiful place and also exotic peoples. So I very much wanted to have a trip by myself and to look at those places. And of course, I had no money, but lots of students, they all just hitchhike and those trucks. And I think I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go, but how you can tell that you can take off, because we work every day. There's no vacation or anything else. I had to wait some opportunity, maybe something for excuse, so I can go to Kunming. And somehow the opportunity arrived, and sooner than I think, because one of our students, and we went together, and she was sick, and didn't go to the village. She was staying not in Kunming, but between Kunming and our place, which was Kangdingxi, in that little city. And so she left some furniture not furniture, those belongings, whatever, luggages, in the village. So she requested to send the things back. So we got the opportunity. So I think the village, the leaders, they agree and let me and another girl to send those, just carry those luggage to that person. And so we got a chance to go to Kunming. So that was third year. When I arrived in Kunming, and I immediately tried to contact with Li and Mei. I still cannot contact with Li, but the Mei is there. And so she was kind of hesitated to meet me. So I know something was happened. And finally she agreed. She said that we have to meet outside somewhere, not at my home. I said, what's happened to your mom? And then she said she's fine. She's still there. He said but it's just not convenient to talk about the Li. And when my mom was there, he said that. So I said, what's happened to Li? He said that they still kept him there. He said that something I wanted to tell you. So I got finally meet him in the park, and at that place I talk about this Camellia tree, the famous 1,000 years old tree. And that time I got there, third year, also the March, so the Camellia is blossom. It's beautiful. So we went the same place. So 3 years ago we met there, and then now again. And she told me very disturbing, and she was crying hard. She told me she had made the decision and broken, but with Li. She cannot marry him and cannot wait him anymore. So, it made me very sad because I like Li, I like Mei, and they both my bigger brother, sister. And so they both my friend. So I really wish they can be together and married and have a happy endings. But it seems like it's not going to happen. So I asked Mei, I said, why you cannot wait? And because I know you love him very, very much. And, but she just crying. She said that you're too young. I said, no, I'm not that young anymore. I said that I met you the first time I was 16. Now I'm 19 now. So I'm an adult now, and you can tell me everything, She just crying. She just crying. She didn't want to say anything. And so she said, I think about that. They said, I will tell you what's happening. So I think I'm going to stop in here. And maybe next week I continue.
Of course you're going to stop right when I want to know what's going on. Every time.
Really.
All right. Well,
okay.
Well, your stories, though, always have meaning when we get into the context of our program. So think about what Amy said. And then when we get into the program, you'll understand kind of what's going on. We're going to remind folks that we have a special segment scheduled today. Our good buddy, he studied Chinese at the University of California at Santa Cruz, so he knows a lot about what went on with China. He's got way more Chinese language than I'll ever even try to assimilate in my life. Michael Olson is here, and Nan, do you want to introduce our special guest today?
Yeah, of course. Michael is a familiar voice to all our audience. He knows a lot about the Cultural Revolution, that part of history in China. He did a very special study on it. So he's going to bring us some interesting segments about the Cultural Revolution.
Well, thank you, Nansu. Now, listen, when we had our little production meeting, you made mention of something that has been eating away at me, and I thought, maybe we should work on that a little bit. And what you made mention of was the fact that Maoism had a big influence not only in China, but around the world as well. And I thought that would be very interesting to pick up Mao, the Cultural Revolution, and take it to the rest of the world, even to myself, so that people could get a fix on what was going on, not only in China, not only with Amy Howe in her re-education camp, but the impact of that really around the world. And I always like to start with Mao himself and the reason for his great success in taking over China in 1949. And Mao started with the principle that he's going to make a better world. He's going to take a culture that had an 8,000-year history and had become somewhat ossified by the fact that there were rich people and poor people. And he was going to change that. He was going to make it a better world by making it an equal world, so that there wouldn't be classes. There wouldn't be the rich and there wouldn't be the poor. There would only be us, the people of China. And I always like to turn back to Mao's poetry, because if you really want to get to know somebody, poetry is a good place to start, because that's really where they crystallize what their notions are in very precise terms. And the poem I always like to turn to is Kunlun, which is a great mountain range in China. And this is the last stanza of that poem. To Kunlun now I say, neither all your height nor all your snow is needed. Could I but draw my sword overtopping heaven, I'd cleave you into three, one piece for Europe, one for America, one to keep in the East. Now a world of peace, sharing together that same warmth and cold throughout the globe. And so that is Maoism in its purest form. And so how do you affect that world? What is your sword that you're going to take and chop down all of those who are big and successful, and so that they can share with the rest, you could share their goods with the rest of the world. So Mao's great sword were political mobilizations of his people. And Maoism, as it came to be known around the world, advocated for permanent revolution. So you're not just having a revolution to overthrow a country or a ruling class. You're going to have a revolution that goes on and on and on and on, and it does not stop. Why is that? Because once you have a revolution and overthrow a government, another government forms, and it becomes as corrupt as the last government. So you're going to always have to keep having a revolution. And that was the essence of Chairman Mao. Between 1949 and 1966, Chairman Mao and the Chinese Communist Party had 22 major mobilizations, revolutions, 22 of them. And the Cultural Revolution, of which Amy speaks, was only the last one. And Mao passed away in 1996. And looking at that period of time, 27 years, Professor Frank Decoder of the University of Hong Kong estimates somewhere between 60 and 80 million people died an unnatural death. But only very, very few of us really knew what was going on during that time. But Maoism, as a revolutionary force, did spread around the world, and this is something Nan-Su made mention of. In Argentina, there was the Revolutionary Communist Party. In Canada, the Revolutionary Workers' Party. In Greece, the Marxist-Leninist Communist Party. In the UK, the Committee to Defeat Revisionism. In Peru, the Shining Path. And in the U.S., we had the League of Revolutionary Struggle, the Red Guard Party, and the Revolutionary Student Brigade. Now, it's really interesting to see how the press of the world looked at what was going on then. Nan? Did you hear Nan?
That was it.
Okay, you're there. I'll just check it. I thought I heard you.
What about Cuba? Cuba sort of has the Communist Party too.
Well, yeah, but Cuba was closely related to
Russia.
I
see.
Russia, yeah.
Yeah, and Mao's revolutionary fervor was directed toward the rural peasantry.
Yeah, the peasants. Yeah, right? Exactly.
And the Soviets were the industrialists. Okay, the city folks.
There you go.
Right. So those are the
And Cambodia, don't forget Cambodia. What happened to Cambodia? The slaughters.
Vietnam.
Yep. And probably the worst example in the world was what happened in the percentage of people that were killed.
The killing fields.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. Camellia. Yeah.
But I wanted to speak to how the press has always been favorably, always favorable toward these communist and socialist insurrections. And it seems like they always spoke favorably of them to one extent or another. And I think of, for example, Edgar Snow, in writing about Mao Zedong, he wrote Red Star over China. And spoke very favorably of what's going on. And I also think of the New York Times, Walter Duranty, who in 1932 won the Pulitzer Prize for covering up Joseph Stalin's great Holodomor genocide of 4 million Ukrainian farmers. They just stole their food. But Walter Duranty was so enamored with Stalin and his revolution that he just completely covered it up.
By the way, that situation is cropping up right now.
You see it right now, of course, and it does not change, does it?
Hasn't changed in all those years.
Duranty was the one who famously viewed the Potemkin villages set up by Stalin and wrote about them in the New York Times. Now, just recently, the Ukraine asked the New York Times to give back that Pulitzer Prize that Duranty won in 1932. And the New York Times refused to do that because, well, it's their property and they want it fair and square. But at any rate, that great cultural revolution had a way of percolating all throughout the world. And so I wanted to address a little bit of the timing, because it was very interesting how that revolution touched us and became part of our culture too, and in fact led to a cultural revolution here as well. And as Amy has been giving this incredibly beautiful subjective viewpoint of the Cultural Revolution in China, I thought I'd get personal as well and talk a little bit about how I saw all of this breaking, because a lot of us lived through this and we all have our stories to tell. So mine was as a Montana farm boy, fresh off the high prairies of Montana. The United States Navy gave me a free ticket to this tropical paradise called Vietnam. And in March of 1968, I found myself on an aircraft carrier steaming for the Gulf of Tonkin, where they were having this wonderful little party called Tet.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
March of 1968. And as a young, dumb Montana farm boy, in 1968 was one incredible year to observe from a distance, because so much happened in the United States as I steamed around the far western Pacific. If you look back at all that happened there, we had the assassination of Martin Luther King. We had the assassination of Bobby Kennedy. We have the anti-war demonstrations getting very violent. We had the Democratic Convention in Chicago. It seemed like America was falling apart. While I was
Ohio, went to Ohio State.
Kent State and Ohio, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
It seemed like our country was falling apart. Now, when was this? This was 1968. When did the Cultural Revolution start? 1966,
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
And that's when Mao, standing in front of millions of young people in Tiananmen Square, said, "Go out and break things, turn out the old, get rid of it." And so much of that fervor seemed to be percolating up all the way across the ocean here in the United States. Now, as I traveled around, thanks to the Navy, throughout the Pacific Basin there, in Japan, in Hong Kong, Philippines, Singapore, all the way around China. But China was so bottled up at that time, even though this was at the peak of the Cultural Revolution, you really didn't know what was going on. You know, something was going on.
We did know, though, that the Chinese government was backing the smaller satellite nations around it, such as North Vietnam.
Yes, absolutely. We knew that.
Yeah.
But we did not know about the Cultural Revolution that was going on inside China, because it was quiet. I mean, the word just, it was not getting out. So we knew that, we were fighting China in Vietnam, but we did not know that China was fighting itself in China. Okay, so it was kind of quiet then. So after the Navy, I ended up going to college at San Diego City College, and for some reason that I still don't understand, I became the student body president of that big, huge inner-city college. And our student body was made up of a lot of different ethnicities, as well as a lot of different politics. We had the ecology movement going on. We had the anti-war movement going on. We have the Mecha organizations. We had the African Student Union, and they were all in my student council, which made life very, very interesting, because we had many different revolutions to fight, and every interest group wanted to fight them. But something very interesting happened to raise the intensity, and that was one day. This is in the early, maybe 1970 or something like that. A student went to the campus quad at the University of California, San Diego, and poured a can of gasoline over himself and lit himself afire and immolated himself right there in the quad in front of all the students. And that act, the terror of that act rippled through the student community of San Diego, and it just tore us all up. And I had a speech teacher at the time. Her name was Peggy Manoukian. She was a Armenian, and Peggy grabbed me by the lapel, and she dragged me into her office. A little gal, and she was adamant. Sit down. I need to talk to you. And she said, listen, this is very close to getting totally out of hand.
Yeah.
And her family had survived the Turkish genocide of Armenians. And so she often talked about that. So she had that knowledge that we didn't. We're just kids, dumb kids, having fun, making revolution. And she said, Michael, you have to organize your students and give them something concrete to do. You have to give them focus to their.
Otherwise, it's going to go south.
Otherwise, it's going to go south, and you're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah.
And so, this takes us to a very interesting point in all socialist revolutionary activity. Now that you've taken over things, what are you going to do to make things better? So, what do you do?
Yeah.
How do you? So we looked around and thought, well, what can we do? Otherwise, we're just going on peace marches and yelling at each other and all this stuff.
And somebody's just burned themselves up in the quad.
And so, so we have to pull ourselves together here. So since San Diego City College was this inner city school that served a lot of single parent moms, we decided to set up a child care center. Now, child care centers are everywhere today, but there were none then.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went to the administration and said, we need room to start a child care center. And the administration said, you can't do that. You can't take children away from their parents. You can't. You just can't do that. So we went to our student body offices and we threw out all the furniture and we hung up a sign that said Child Care Center. So we can do that, and so that became our little revolution, and it gave us focus. And it gave us the opportunity for black students and brown students and white students and ecological students and anti-war students, and it gave us all something we could do together.
Yeah.
And we did.
How'd it work out?
Well, we discovered that we took all the money from the school football team. And we built a child care center, figuring, of course, that the school district would not allow us to take away all the money from the football team. So they funded the school football team, and we used the student money to build a child care center. That's still there.
Good for you guys.
But I now look back and think... I often appeared on the local radio stations because of this conflict of setting up a child care center, and people would call me and say, "You're a communist for taking away the children from the parents," and I sometimes wonder at that. I sometimes wonder if we haven't made a big mistake in taking fathers away from families, and child care centers were part of what made that possible. And so I could argue that but at any rate, I ended up going to the University of California, Santa Cruz, after being a student body president.
So you, in fact, were a communist.
I was. I really think I was. I was trying to. Yeah. I was trying to be a communist.
Agree with
I was trying to be.
Yeah, you like the theory of this noise and Marxism.
Exactly, and so I ended up at University of California, Santa Cruz to study literature, and they said, "Well, what language are you going to take in translation?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And they said, "You have to have a literature in a foreign language to get a major in English literature." And I thought, flunked German in high school, didn't want to go back there.
So you picked maybe the hardest language for Westerners to learn?
But
Really?
But,
yes.
But I had become so enamored with Asia, being there, Billy, being so close to China, and not being able to see inside.
Right.
You know, being in Hong Kong.
Curiosity.
And just knowing that it has more people than anywhere.
Yeah.
And it had an 8,000-year culture and a tradition. And you know it was going to do something. You know, you can't keep a bottle, a lid on that forever.
Here we are. Here we are talking about it.
Yeah, so I said, well, I'll study Chinese. And they looked at me and said, well, we have a Chinese language, but we don't have any literature, and so you'll have to do all of this on your own as a independent study. And I said, fine, I'll do it. And so I spent 2 years at UC and a year of intensive Chinese at Cal Berkeley, and I studied Chinese literature and language and culture, and I even had an art demonstration of my calligraphy. I was dreaming in Chinese. That's how I was dreaming in Chinese. But in my studies, I came to recognize, thanks to my professors, that something really bad was happening in China. And this is around 70. I graduated from UC in 74. So this is getting on toward the end of the Cultural Revolution. And I realized, Billy, that I could not go to China. I could not become part. And I had...
Amazing how your dreams get tossed upside down.
I'm just...
So Michael, let me ask you something. So that time you really dream about to go to join the Cultural Revolution?
No, I wasn't. I was kind of past that. I was dreaming in Chinese. That's how steeped in the language I was. I was dreaming in Chinese. And by then...
Mao's poet didn't go to your dream.
And by then, I had pretty much come to the conclusion that politics is a dirty business that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I knew that I was becoming everything that I was fighting against.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think most of us who had any kind of political ambition or any thoughts in that, eventually, at least most of us that don't end up in politics, came to some sort of revolution like that in their brain.
Yeah.
It happened to me, too.
And Michael's personal experience, just quite fascinating. Really, I didn't know, the poison and the disease, how it affects to the American people, American kids, students.
Very much so.
Yeah, we don't know, because China was totally isolated during that period. Just like you say, you don't know what's happening inside of China. We don't know what's happening outside of China. So 1982, I arrived in San Francisco and learned how to drive. My driving instructor, and he told me, he said that he was a red guy.
Red guard.
San Francisco, red guy, yeah. I said, wow. He said that, I don't believe you. I said, hey, red guy in San Francisco? He said, yeah. He was in City College. He joined the red guy. And he said, I show you. Let's drive over there. I show you 24 and Mission. It's their headquarters. And that abandoned warehouse still have all the post-Cultural Revolution, post-Mao's pictures, everything else. Still there, 1982.
Yeah.
So I look at this place, I believe what he said. And then he said what the damage it do to him is he didn't go to the city college, 2 years college. He didn't go to university because Mao said we don't need that knowledge. The world was controlled by workers, farmers, and soldiers. So that's why. So that's why I said I end up an instructor and teaching people how to drive. He said, I didn't get any profession because I didn't go to college. Yeah, really, because Mao said the knowledge is useless. All the intellectual people is bad, so they don't need it.
Well, the interesting thing about Mao and studying his poetry is that, you really get to know someone closely. But one of the big reasons Mao wrote poetry was that in China, in throughout history, to become a Mandarin, to become an official, you had to be able to write poetry.
Yeah.
To pass the civil exams.
Yeah.
But you know what interests me about this is it's a cultural revolution to suppress the traditional Chinese culture, and yet he's perpetuating culture knowledge by learning to write. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well,
really.
Yeah, very controversial.
Billy, you have to keep in mind that Mao, he graduated. He finished his own elementary and middle school study in the old school. So that's where he learned all that, how to write poetry.
No, I understand that, but it just seems so contradictory to his ultimate goal.
Well, so that contradiction showed up when I had to take my oral comprehensive exams at the University of California, because I had a degree in English and Chinese literature. And so I had to meet with the English department and the Chinese department to take my final exams, right? And so when I showed up, the Chinese department was there, but the English department wasn't. So I couldn't take my exam. So I went to the English department and said, why didn't you show up? And they said, because we don't consider Mao to be a legitimate course of literature. He's politics. And so I had to sell them on why Mao's poetry was a good emulation of the classic Chinese poets throughout history. And so finally I sold them on the fact that what Mao was trying to do was to emulate the classic Chinese poets and the styles of them. And so then we scheduled the oral comprehensives again, and the English people showed up, but the Chinese people wouldn't show up. Right? And the Chinese people felt slighted because the English people didn't think that China had literature. Right?
Oh, jeez.
Okay.
So it's political.
So
it ends up being political.
Absolutely. So finally, on the third time, I got the English department and the Chinese people to sit for my oral comprehensive.
So it's your own version of the United Nations.
It was. But as Amy was cheated out of 10 years of her life by Chairman Mao, I was cheated out of the opportunity to go to China.
Yeah. And that's something. Boy, what a great way to tie that up. Michael Olson, thank you for your great
fantastic,
fascinating story. We're going to take our break for this hour and then come back to wrap up the first hour of China Über Alice. If you want to participate in our program today, we have quite a discussion coming up on climate change and all kinds of things surrounding that and China. It's all on the way in our next hour. This is China Über Alice on AM 1080 KSCO. Satisfy your hunger with a fresh, prepared, twice daily grab-and-go sushi you'll find waiting for you at Sushi Market Sprouts, 2 blocks from the beach at 300 7th Avenue in Santa Cruz. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
Hello, I'm Junko, and I look forward to serving you at the Sushi Market Sprouts.
On the lot at Chevrolet of Watsonville. Hello folks, Michael Olson here with Melvin Cooper, the owner of Chevrolet of Watsonville. Melvin, people laughed at you when you took ownership of Watsonville's sad little Chevrolet dealership over a decade ago. I heard them myself, but you built Chevrolet of Watsonville into a sparkling example of what a local car and truck dealership can be.
How did you do it?
Well, Michael, we became a part of the community. We merely just went to work every single day with the vision and hope of building a bigger business and offering more value to the customers in our community. We invested in our community and ourselves and continuously trained and improved and developed. We listened to our customers' feedback and areas that we can improve, and we've continuously been improving for nearly 13 years here now. We've been awarded the best dealership in the community, and we've continued to build on that momentum.
Folks, see how he did it for yourself at Melvin Cooper's hands-on, no-pressure dealerships on Watsonville's Auto Road.
This is the Monterey Bay, teeming with 525 fish species. Washing away paint into storm drains sends particulates into the bay, increasing the turbidity or muddiness of the water. This in turn clogs the gills of our fish, restricting their breathing ability. Ed Doyle Eco Painting does whatever it can to help, using drains connected to water treatment facilities and wrapping paint tools before disposal. 831-325-9810. Ed Doyle Eco Painting.
Hi, Doug Andrew here. Learn 3 secrets that will immediately protect and preserve your wealth. How you can liberate yourself from taxes and market losses. As a financial strategist and retirement planning specialist for more than 46 years, I want to teach you how to optimize your financial assets and minimize taxes. Learn why now may be the perfect time to get taxes over with on IRAs and 401ks while tax rates are low. Because if you've saved very much, your current tax bracket will likely be the lowest bracket you will ever be in. Convert to tax-free savings vehicles. Join me for a free 100-minute educational webinar about protecting yourself from unnecessary taxes and market volatility. We're teaching this free webinar next Wednesday at 12 o'clock noon Pacific time. You'll be given the opportunity to receive a free copy of my newest 300-page book, The Laser Fund. Call 800-532-2076 for details. 800-532-2076.
At Batteries Plus, we do more than fix phones and tablets. We help our neighbors power their lives. Visit Batteries Plus in-store, curbside, and online to save on boat, RV, and motorcycle batteries. For offer details and limitations, visit batteriesplus.com.
Well, we're back just to end this hour. I want to remind folks they can participate in China Uber Alice next hour by giving us a call at 479-1080, 479-1080, and we'll invite you to give us a call. We have quite a discussion scheduled for next hour. Nan, we're going to be talking about climate change and about how China seems to be the biggest polluter in the world at this point, right?
Yes, number 1.
All right. Well, number 1 in the world. All right. So that's probably not, and we'll talk about a bunch of things related to that in the next hour. We do want to remind you, you're listening to AM 1080 KSCO, Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey, and we invite you to join us after the news for our second hour today. You can go to our website, ChinaUberAlice.com, and see the show notes for today's program and some other information as well. Über Alles is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito, coming soon to the Capitola Mall food court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum! 7 minutes past 3 o'clock. Welcome to the second hour of today's edition of China Über Alles. I'm Bill Graff, along with Nan Su, a senior reporter from the Epoch Times, and Amy Howe, who is a survivor of the re-education camps from the Cultural Revolution in China under Chairman Mao. We have quite a second hour planned for you. To quote U.S. climate envoy John Kerry, we are not pointing fingers, after a release of a joint statement from the U.S. and China suggesting the two nations are committed to cooperating on the issue of climate change. While noting that China is the biggest coal user in the world, Mr. Kerry did fail to note that China is aggressively increasing their number of coal-fired power plants, while the United States has been dramatically decreasing its overall CO2 emissions. Anyway, so this is the beginning of our discussion. Nan Su and Amy Howe are the real stars of this program. They have quite a perspective on how China operates. Nan, tell me about this big increase in power generating capability in China.
Well, China is pursue its 2050 plan, right? So, 2050, by the year of 2050, which is, 1949 was considered the year that the Communist Party CCP took over control of China. So 1950 was their first the first 5 economic plan. They learned the system from Soviet Union, so they make central plan economy. They make plans for every 5 years. So the 1950 starting from 1951. So there's the first 5 year and the second 5 year now. So it's keep going. So by the year of 2050, China, they are going to become everything, manufacture and technology, everything made in China. That's supposed to the aggressive plan that's made by the CCP. Now, of course, they will need a lot of power. So there, and now interesting things, since you're talking about the coal. Now, coal power plant using coal burning in China has been there ever since the beginning, 1949. Now, the very interesting thing is it's very easy to make a clean power plant by burning the coal. All you need to do is just wash the coal. You just pre-wash the coal before you burn it. And China refused to do that.
Oh, really?
So they don't want to. Yeah, they just don't do it. You go to United Kingdom. They have coal burning power plants too. They just do it, pre-wash it, and then it's much cleaner.
Well, Amy, tell me about living in China. I've seen pictures of Shanghai. Just the example, the picture taken from one office building to another, looking at another office building across the street, except the picture I saw, you can't see the building across the street. There's so much pollution. Yeah,
it's really bad. Last time I visited China is 2012. Then my late husband hospitalized there for 20 days. I also sick, all because of the pollution. We go to China lots of times, and only can be short, like 1 week, 2 week maximum. So if 3rd week, almost everybody gets sick.
Oh, because they're just not used to the pollution.
Yeah, you didn't know how bad it is. I tell you, we stay in the hospital, but sometimes you have to open the window, right? So I open the window. My purse is a black purse, and then for about half hour, immediately dusted, all covered by the dust.
Oh wow!
Just half hour. Just open the window for half hour, and so we are that time are still not well enough to fly back. But my brother said, you gotta go. He said, that's another place you stay and waiting for recovery. You're gonna get sicker. So we immediately back to the United States.
Wow.
So that's the last time I visited, which was, I stayed there for 3 weeks. I tell you, almost everybody in third week, they started sick. Really sick. I'm just can't breathe.
Well, if I remember correctly,
yeah.
Amy, when they had the Olympics in China, they stopped all industry for about 3 weeks ahead of the games, so that the pollution would lower.
More than 3 weeks. 3 months. They also limited that they don't let people out where they're residents. They cannot drive out. They cannot do anything for a long time until the game is over. So I think 2008, right after Olympic, I go to Beijing. That time I think probably the air is the best. Then immediately and getting worse. Then 2010 in Shanghai, the World Expo, I go there, and because of those big events, so they had put a show on, so they immediately don't let people out.
Yeah.
There's no activities. So like shut down all the nearby factories.
Wow.
Just like that, It's really bad. I tell you, they not just pollute China. Also, 2017, I visited different countries in Asia by cruise, like Malaysia, Indonesia, and also in Singapore. 2007, I visited the same place, and you at least can breathe. But 2017, 10 years later, and most of all, the Chinese investments there.
Yeah.
The worst one, 2018, visiting Burma, they tried to build a big dam there. So Burma still is clear air because they still use traditional agriculture, buffaloes, everything, right? So people still can live there, and the Irrawaddy River was clear, but they want to build a dam, and then the rest of nearby villages, they will be drawn. So they try to do these big things to entire Asia, not just China only. Really, pollute, unbelievable.
We have a caller. Terry is calling us from Felton. Let's see how am I going to do this? I'm going to bring this Terry on here. Hi, Terry. You're on China Uber Alice.
Hey, everybody. I really, really love your show. So I wanted to recommend to Amy and Nan Sue, because I already told you this, Billy. Mm-hmm. There was a Tom Quinn show on April 17th, so just last Saturday. It's on from 12 noon to 1, so you could listen to it on the computer. But Tom Quinn interviewed Dr. Robert Young, and he was talking about the vaccine, about the coronavirus, about all these different things, very much against the vaccines. And he made a statement I thought you too might find interesting. He said 80% of all pharmaceuticals in the United States are the ingredients are produced in China. And he said there's 4 large Pfizer pharmaceutical manufacturing in China. And in other words, this was a very dangerous thing. And I'm just wondering if either of you know about that. And he said a lot of different things. One thing that the vaccines would do is turn people into transmutant humans and kill a large number of people. So I'm just curious, have either of you heard about this? And I also heard about years ago on a different station, the same thing. The book was called China RX, and talking about how most of the pharmaceutical manufacturing had been moved to China, I believe as early as the year 2000. So most of the pharmaceuticals or the ingredients we're getting is from there. So I'm just curious, Nan, have you ever heard about the pharmaceutical manufacturing being moved from the United States to China?
Yes, Terry, that's indeed correct. In fact, during the COVID time last year, there was a lot of discussion about the safety of our supply chain, specifically the supply chain to our pharmaceutical company. But if you, thank you for your call and the information. I wasn't aware of that. Actually, 80% of our vaccine material was actually made in China. I didn't have that number, but I believe what you just told the audience that actually, because actually last year there was a wide discussion that's under President Trump to talk about how to secure our supply chain and for the safety of the materials related to our pharmaceutical production.
Yeah, and I would just love it, Nan, if you would listen to this show that was on April 17th from 12 to 1 on KSCO, and I would just love to know what you think, and because he said a lot of different things. He's a medical doctor. I'm not.
Terry, I'll see if I can get that to Nan. I'll pull it off our recorder and see if I can send that to him. Terry, I'm going to cut you loose because I'm juggling phone lines here.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, let's move on to Dick in Santa Cruz. Let me try Dick on this line. There we go. Dick, you're on KSCO.
Hey, I want to change the subject, but that lady just did. So I just wanted to say something. I wanted the reaction from Nansu and Amy of I think the Santa Cruz Sentinel is getting their some of their editorial work done by the CCP. The headline was something like anti-Asian trouble in Santa Cruz County or brewing in Santa, and the paper had a picture of a scribble on a bathroom wall, okay, and it said something to the extent that the passports, the vaccine passports, are a creation of China, of the CCP. You've heard probably of the coming. They have one, the Excelsior Pass in New York City or New York. It's going to be all digitized. They'll know where you are, what you're buying, what you're doing. And basically, it's a social credit score that you'll be accumulating with your vaccine passport. They're trying to make out this connection. I mean, it's extremely propaganda because they're stretching so far to make it sound like anti-Asian rhetoric. And I just wondered what you guys might think of that. And the passport, this vaccine passport, you won't be able to do anything. Restaurants, maybe even shopping, if they put this through. I know Biden is saying, we're going to leave it up to the private sector or whatever. But governors are pushing it through, city manager, it's coming to Santa Cruz, I'm sure. And if I could get your comments on that, I really appreciate that. And if I had another minute, I wanted to talk about another little topic in China.
And Dick, you're right. I received some emails and also some message links. They said that if you had fully vaccinated, you had to register in CDC and to get the passport. Yeah. And then I look at the CDC, no such a thing. So I don't know if anybody believe it. They registered those information where it goes. Interesting. I look at CDC. They didn't ask you to register. I didn't receive any official notice from my doctor or the place I got the vaccine, like my North Bay I got it from. And they didn't send me that after you vaccinated, you had to register in CDC and get this digital passport. And then you can go to airport and everywhere else. So I don't know those information. If you register, so where the information goes? Somebody, a CCP or what? Whoever, I don't know.
Is it a possibility it might be a scam?
I think so.
What?
But I'm wondering whether they're fishing for
information. Yeah.
But they're asking. But every municipality across America is talking about vaccine passports in one form or another, and all the businesses are. And anyway, I think it's a real a threat to liberty, and because of the database that they will accumulate would be overwhelming. I mean,
well, I think we should all, Dick. I think we should all watch our information closely and not give it to anybody we don't think.
Yeah.
We should.
No. I mean, you won't be able to fly, Billy.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know that yet. I mean, I haven't heard any official. Heard any official information about it.
You had to have a passport. The vaccine passport. There's another passport.
You haven't heard anything about vaccine passports, Billy?
No, I haven't heard anything officially from the government about it. I have a shot card that says I got my shot.
Did you hear
that should be enough.
Excelsior Pass in New York? Did you hear the Excelsior Pass in New York?
Well, yeah, but that's New York. That's only one little municipality. What I'm talking about, I mean, here in California, if you got a vaccine, you got a shot card. You got proof you've been vaccinated.
Yeah, you better show it when you go to Über, to get your calamari. Hey, one other thing. One other thing, real quick. I want to see what you two might have to say, and Billy, about there's rumors about the digital currency in China. They're really working on that, because then they're basically be able to tell everything that you're doing, just like the Apple, COVID contact thing that they came up with. Mm-hmm. Not that China came up with. Maybe they did, but the digital the rumor that I've heard is they're looking at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a very limited. It's completely limited, and it's so funny. People don't talk about how Bitcoin is created. It's one of the biggest polluters that there is to create a Bitcoin now. It takes so much computer power, but that's a sidebar. All I wanted to say was, did you guys hear anything about China maybe linking their digital currency to Bitcoin to give it some credos, because Bitcoin is so limited, or maybe come up with their own type of Bitcoin that's limited?
They are coming up with their own.
No, Dick,
no.
You right it on the point again. I think 2 weeks ago we talked about that, and we have this Josh from the Über time. Yeah, and it's very important. We're gonna invite him back to talk about this issue. Yeah, they're not talking about the Bitcoin or anything. It's a different digital money system.
Only in China.
Replace it. Yeah. No. They're gonna replace in next 5 years. Gonna replace the current the American dollar system.
Well,
in
could you ask?
world.
Could you ask Josh if they're going to use blockchain to create their digital currency? If they are going to have a limited, because if they did that, if you think about it, how reserve, remember the gold reserve, everybody, way back when, the gold and silver at one time, and countries, I think Switzerland's the only one that might have a slight percentage of their gold based on their printing of the Swiss francs and so forth and so on. But I don't think any other country does it still. Maybe China does, but it would be along the lines of that, except they would have the digital, spy in the sky kind of thing on everybody.
Dick, if I remember correctly, when Josh was talking about this, he was talking about China developing its own digital currency, and that they hope to push that around the world and have it become the world standard instead of the dollar.
Yeah, I know he was leaning towards that, but to do that, Billy, what I'm saying, okay, if you base it on like Bitcoin and the blockchain kind of limited resource, it's a very very limited resource. They go, Bitcoin's like what, $60,000 right now. Some people say it's going to go to 200,000. That's because there's a limited amount, and the mining of Bitcoin gets more and more. And you guys are talking about the environment. Bitcoin, you look it up. They are one of the biggest polluters to generate a Bitcoin.
But keep in mind what you're saying, Dick. Keep in mind what you're saying in the context of the program you're saying it on. We're talking about China being the biggest polluter in the world right now. They don't care about how much pollution they generate when they you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So anyway, ask Josh if they use blockchain in a Bitcoin kind of form of when they generate their digital currency. I know they're coming out with it real quick.
All right, Dick. I'm juggling phone lines, so I'm going to go ahead and cut you loose.
See ya.
All right. Nan, did you want to say something about that?
Yes, actually, Dick. I think Dick was a little confused about the relationship between the currency and the Bitcoin or any digital money. Now, China is not trying to link their money with any of either gold standard or any Bitcoin or digital currency. It's right now, pretty much none of any country's currency are actually tied to any gold or any digital Bitcoin, right? So it's basically it's the credit of the government. It's like United States dollars. It's like when you're counting on the value of dollar, you're counting on the credit of United States government. China is the same way. And what China trying to create right now is not any a new digital money that's based on blockchain technology, but rather it's a financial system. Basically, they're going to tie everyone's saving account into a digital system that's controlled by the government. So basically, they will replace all the paper money. You're not going to use paper money anymore. And everyone had a car. The car will link to your bank account, and then also at the same time will link to a central control system that tied to the wherever the new system the Chinese regime is going to create to control and watch everybody's saving account. So they know, where your money goes, and they know how much you have, and at the time necessary, they can just close your account right there if they think you're doing some dangerous activities against the government.
Yeah, or delete,
or
frozen.
Criticize the government. They can, they can immediately shut off your financial, right? Everything, right? Your finance, so your personal finance will be shut off immediately. So that's the kind of a system China trying to push forward.
It sounds like a really bad science fiction movie.
No,
it's not a movie. That's they're doing it right now.
Fiction, doing right already. Some city, for instance, you sell your property, they're not going to give you the traditional money into your account. So they all become into the digital system. The transaction directly, now allowed to go to traditional system. So what can you do? If you're against it, and you never get your money.
Wow.
So when Dick called in, I think he is kind of confused about the concept of digital money. I mean, we know there was Bitcoins, there was other kind of a digital money similar to Bitcoins based on blockchain technology. But that's what China is trying to do. What they're trying to do is to create essentially a financial system, digital system that will control everyone, every business, and every corner of the society, on the money flow.
Okay, so let's tie that thought and that story with a sort of a related story. By the way, if you want to call us and talk to us on China Uber Alice, the telephone number is 479-1080, 479-1080. This was reported in one of the major newspapers, the South China Times, and it's a
South China Morning Post.
I'm sorry. South China Morning Post, and the story is all about China setting up a large-scale test of a new version of the Internet of the future. China wants to be in control of the Internet around the world, and they're testing it first with a connection between 40 leading universities to prepare for an AI-driven society 5 to 10 years down the road. This facility will become the prototype for the future Internet with huge bandwidth to connect many devices expected to be commonplace around the world. But this one will be controlled by China, and this is really scary because remember now what you were just talking about, Nan, a few minutes ago about money and about digital money and whatnot. Well, if it's digital money backed by China is put into a network of Internet infrastructure backed by China around the world, then you have a situation where the rest of the world either's got to kowtow to China or get forced out.
Yeah,
well,
they're
I
going to
think
dominate
that's, I read the report. Actually, they started this kind of test by tying 40 universities together and to start a test. I think it's a real possibility. They want to invent that system to control the Internet all around the world. And keep in mind, the corporations here in Silicon Valley are helping China. I wrote a report about 2 years ago that the Google it's built up, it's to have a joint adventure with Tsinghua University in Beijing. That's China's MIT, China's top university. That to help that university to develop the new AI technology, and also per my own investigation, that lab that Google was helping, having joint adventure to develop AI technology, also received money directly from Chinese military to develop what they call the dual use technology for military and civilian purpose. So that's what happened. And China get all their AI developed with the help from Silicon Valley big corporations. And then once they learn all the technology, they're going to start their own thing. I mean, it's just like the very beginning of right after China joined WTO, they welcomed Yahoo, they welcomed Google, they welcomed Microsoft, Apple to go to China. But then once China developed their own system, like Baidu and Alibaba, and their own internet giant, then they will kick all American technology corporations out of the market.
One of the stories I read about this, apparently a number of Chinese telecommunications companies, including Huawei and some others, overtook their Western competitors in 5G and other cutting-edge technologies, but the technological lead was limited to just certain fields, particularly involving protocols and software. The United States government has launched various experimental networks, including the Global Environment for Network Innovations, GENI, to maintain its overall lead in network technology. But there are other players around the world that are trying to get into this too. That's the European Union, Japan, South Korea. They all have similar projects. So I guess what we're looking at is a worldwide competition, I guess is the best way to put it, to try to figure out who's going to be technologically ahead.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, they're going to dominate the 21st century.
Well, they're going to try, that's for sure.
No question.
Yeah, well, China is building the world's largest 5G network right now, but at least, look, the good news is at least we're aware of it. It's widely known in the press and in the government circles. So.
Well, I think the United States government still way underestimate the dangers, the level of danger, that the threat that's opposed to the United States and the entire Western world by Chinese government. And one example is our president actually that's today's news. In the Earth Day Summit, and then he actually made a promise. United States government is going to increase the funding to help the countries to fight against the pollution. Now, I don't see the list of the countries that will receive the funding from the donation of the United States taxpayer. But I'm just thinking, maybe China is one of the country on the list to receive our taxpayers' money.
Entirely possible, isn't it? The other thing I found very interesting in the news in the last week is we have on our China Über Alice website a link to basically it's an NOAA government photograph of the pollution in northeastern China, a plume of pollution. It is, if you go to our website and take a look at this, it will blow your mind how polluted this area is. You can see it from space. It's unbelievable how much pollution there is. And I find it very interesting that China doesn't think we're qualified to talk about pollution with them or anything else for that matter. And yet, if you look at the satellite photographs from space, it's fairly evident that the major part of the pollution on the planet Earth is coming from one country.
Well, China is entirely able to create a blue sky, right? Amy just gave an example around the Olympics 2008. And also, I'm not sure if you guys remember the term called APEC blue. Do you remember that?
Can you say that again? You're a little close to...
APEC blue.
Oh, okay.
APEC blue, that's 2014, October of 2014, the Asian Pacific Summit.
APEC, yeah.
APEC, Asian Pacific Summit.
Yeah.
That's Asian Pacific ring countries had a summit in Beijing. So Beijing, the Chinese government shut down all the operations of the factories around the city of Beijing for 5 days and close all the universities and businesses and offices, and ask the residents to stay home for 5 days. Only 5 days doing so, they create a blue sky for the world leaders from Asian Pacific countries to go to Beijing to join the APEC meeting. So therefore, there was a term later become really popular called APEC blue. Just do the Google search. You'll find the APEC blue.
It amazes me, what you said earlier in the program blows me away, and I keep coming back to it in my mind because it's somewhat profound for me. The only thing that China would really have to do to increase more blue sky and decrease its pollution is to wash the coal before they burn it. Why don't they do that? I don't understand. Does it cost a lot of money, or is it?
Yeah, it cost money. A few years ago, I believe that's about 5 or maybe 6 years ago. There is a reporter. It's a female reporter, a very famous TV talk show host. She was once a very famous TV talk show host of CCTV, China's central TV station. That's the state-owned television, and Chinese government's mouthpiece. Now, she had her children both of them, after they were born, they found there's a birth defect. And she started, thinking, her suspicion about, the reason she had children with, that were born with birth defect was because of the pollution, right? So she started her own investigation, and then she published a series of a report. And also at the same time, she left the CCTV and she started her independent investigative report. And now her movie, she got a movie that's as the result of her investigation. But that later, her name is Cai Jing, right? I'm not sure Amy remembers
yes.
her name.
Uh-huh.
Yes, Cai Jing, right?
Yeah.
So
what's happened to her now?
Her movie was completely off the shelf by the government, So basically, one of the major part that she asked all these different power plant and their superior organization, the government institution and the government offices, it's why don't you guys just use clean coal, right? Clean coal, basically you pre-wash the coal and then you use it for the power plant. And they say, hey, they don't have the budget for it.
Wow. Billy, I tell you something, some horrible, then you finish with talking. You finished with the Cai Jing's report?
Yeah. So basically what they are telling this reporter is there's no government regulation for it, and then government is not required, and then they don't, when they say there was no budget, meaning just, they don't have money for it. But I guess if China really wants to produce the blue sky, they can just simply make any regulation, say, hey, you have to use clean coal, then guess what? The electricity price will probably go up. Everybody probably have to cough up a little more to pay for the electricity, but therefore China will have the blue sky, but they just never want to do it.
And yet, when they want the Western world to look favorably upon them, like when the Olympics take place, for instance, then they have the will to do it. It seems like there's talking out of both sides of their mouths.
Yeah,
really, you think about it. If they keep their sky dirty, they can probably get some money from the Biden administration, right?
Or somewhere else in the world too.
They wanted to, yeah. And so I'm talking about the coal mine industry in China. It's a real tragic horror story. Because number one, not just say they don't use the money to wash the coal, that kind of thing, and meet the regulations. They use the child labor, because the coal mine was very low. So they hire those kids, as 12 years old, 13 years old to carry the coal out. And then they go to the very, very poor village and get those kids, say that, well, you go somewhere, I'll give you a job again, make money. So those poor farmers' kids coming to be at that. And then some people, and they constantly have accidents, this fall, because of this horrible condition. And then the people waiting to work there, and some people, and they wanted to pay for their college, and the kids' college, the tuition is very expensive. So if the mine is full and have an accident, so they get a life insurance. So they use that insurance, basically use their life to pay for those kids, their education and to work in the mine. So it's just horrible. But meanwhile, the other side, the owner of the mine, coal mine, I went to, I bought some property in Sanyang. Right now, it's in the Hainan Island. They're supposed to make a second Hong Kong, and a free shopping zone or something like that, tax-free shopping zone. That place, when lots of coal mine owners, they have the property there for the winter time. And so one time I got there, all the hotels booked, all the 5-star hotel, all full So I said, what's going on? I booked it with Marriott early, so they didn't let me stay. So all others all booked it because one of this called my owner's daughter get married, and just talking about how rich the few say rich, and meanwhile the workers how tragic it is. You know, they use their life to get the fee for their children's tuition. So there's bigger contrast. So that's the tragic story of a Chinese coal mine. Not talking about they were willing to spend the money to reduce the pollution.
Yeah.
No such a thing. It's horrible.
Well, you know, we're living proof. This country is living proof, particularly California. When I was a kid, when I used to go down to visit my grandmother in Southern California, we'd get to the top of the Gorman Grade and look down into Los Angeles, and it was polluted. It was, horrible. The smog was awful. But you do the same thing today, and it's clear because we put in the regulations and mandated that the pollution be reduced. So it is possible for it to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well, think about this. Here in the United States, if you put out any new regulations, people have to vote to agree to put it into the legislature, right? In China, if a Chinese government ever have any thoughts, any intent to do anything, nobody can stop them from doing that. It's just if they want to do it or not. But but if they don't want to do it, what's the reason for us to keep continual discussion with them? I mean, it's like it's ever going to, those discussions will ever go anywhere. I mean, we have been negotiating with China for more than 20 years, ever since we allowed China to join WTO 2001, year after year after year after year after year. And we're still negotiating the promise the Chinese regime made 20 years ago when we allowed them to join WTO. So that kind of, those kind of negotiation, we know it's not going to anywhere. Why do we still need to talk to them about this kind of thing?
Well, it's a good question, isn't it? But I think maybe our government with the last couple of years and the new administration sort of following the same approach to China, I think maybe we have at least learned that we can't hope that they're going to they're going to follow what we want them to do.
Well, but anyway, it's like a nuclear negotiation between United States and North Korea, right? They'll make promise, they're going to break it when they need to break it. And then they'll make promise again, and then they'll break it again. So what's the point of making those negotiations and even to keep those negotiations going?
Yeah. Well, that's true. I should remind folks before I forget that we do have a really great website. Our webmaster Jonty has really put together quite a landing site for our program, ChinaUberAlice.com. There's a lot on that website. All of our show notes, the articles and whatnot we talk about and prepare every week are listed there with a link so you can go and see them. And our show archive is there, as it is on ZBSradio.com as well. You can go there and hear episodes of the radio program. If there's something you thought we said in a past program, you can go back and re-listen to it and make sure we didn't say it wrong, I guess is the best way to put it, or figure out what we're talking about. But if you have suggestions for future programs related to China, please let us know. You can give me a call. You give me an email at production@ksco.com, and I'll pass that along to our program group for our show meetings and whatnot, and we'll see if we can't get your topic on the program. If there's something we're not covering that you want us to talk about, please let us know. I know that I have to ask you, Nan, because I know you're off-site right now in Lake Tahoe. Is it snowing up there?
Not at all. Not at all. It's quite sunny, and the sky's really blue, and so is the water.
Is it windy there?
It's great. Excuse me?
It's windy there?
A little bit of breeze, which is, I'm not thinking using the word windy, but it's got a little breeze, but it's just really great. That really shows that how much that we try to protect our own environment. Right.
I brought that up because Lake Tahoe is sort of, although the tourists tend to leave more trash around than they should, and they're working to clean that up. It's in the news recently. Lake Tahoe remains fairly pristine compared, for the amount of people that live around the lake and all that. And we make such an effort here. I wonder if there's a way we can convince China to start cleaning up its own act. I mean,
well, China, it's really how much will that the Chinese government want to put into this. Now, the World Health Organization had a statistic that basically shows out of the top 10 most polluted cities are all around the world, 7 of them are in China. Now, also the United Nations have its own investigation out of the top 20 most polluted cities all around the world. 16 of them are in China. If you look at the rivers and lakes, any rivers and lakes and even streams that's in China, it's very much polluted because of the last 30, 40 years of the economic development in China.
So
it's really just the Chinese government doesn't want to do anything for its own people.
Well, and also, because China is a voting member in the I forget what it's called, but the 5 nations or 7 nations that are in control of the United Nations,
UN Security Council.
The Security Council, yeah.
Security Council,
China has a veto vote, just like the United States does. So several of the countries, the big members of the Security Council can override a UN resolution, for instance. So I'm sure that China has enough voting power to keep itself polluting as long as they want.
Wow.
Well,
but they're hurting their own people too. People live there. Think about that. I think the lung cancer, it's unbelievable, the rate. I know lots of people. They don't smoke, but they get lung cancer. So what do you think?
Yeah, lung cancer. Well, look, the picture I saw that just keeps haunting me. I'm telling you, it really does. The picture of a guy took a picture out of a window of a skyscraper in Shanghai of the building across the street, except you can't see the building.
Yeah.
It's that.
Now, I'm not sure if American knows, in China, the top Chinese government officials, they don't get their food supply chain from the normal market.
Yeah,
they have a special market. They have a special place to grow this kind of organic food and meat.
Everything
from those farms,
so they won't die.
And a drink.
Yeah.
The water, everything,
Folks, we're at the end of this hour as well. I'm going to take our final commercial break. We'll be back to wrap up the program in just a moment. Satisfy your hunger with a fresh, prepared, twice daily grab-and-go sushi you'll find waiting for you at Sushi Market Sprouts, 2 blocks from the beach at 300 7th Avenue in Santa Cruz. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
Hello, I'm Junko, and I look forward to serving you at the Sushi Market Sprouts.
It's springtime at your locally owned Ace Hardware stores in Santa Cruz. You probably know our stores on Almar and on Soquel Avenue, so we're proud to invite you to our brand new store at 201 Front Street. Twice as big, plenty of parking, and lots of new merchandise. Whether it's Steel and Ego outdoor power tools, grills from Weber, Traeger, and Big Green Egg, beach accessories and fishing gear, or garden soil and fertilizers, Ace is the place for spring. See you soon.
When there's work to do, ground to break, earth to move, and a reputation to uphold, you need the durable Kubota RTVX. Built with half-ton capabilities, industry-exclusive heavy-duty features, and a cargo bed that easily transitions into a second row of seating. The RTVX is North America's #1 selling diesel utility vehicle. Visit your local Kubota dealer and test drive one today. Go to KubotaUSA.com for full disclaimer.
C&N Tractors in Watsonville and Paso Robles makes it so easy to get a Kubota. Give us your tough jobs.
If you have trees to manage at your home or business, get to know Santa Cruz County's employee-owned Davey Tree experts. Listen to what your friends and neighbors have to say about Santa Cruz Davey Tree.
Hello, my name is Tom Wilson from George H. Wilson Mechanical Contractors. I've worked with Davey Tree both personally and professionally for years. Recently, we've had our trees trimmed, pruned, and fertilized at our Harvey West facility. Davey's crew was on time, used safe practices, communicated throughout the project, and cleaned up daily. The resulting chips were recycled at neighbors for mulching. Davey's tree experts are professional, safe, communicate well, and are cost-effective.
Assign your trees and shrubs to the experts at Santa Cruz Davey Tree and relax. Serving Santa Cruz and northern Monterey County, home and business owners, Santa Cruz Davey Tree, 831-291-5341 or daveytree.com.
KO here, reminding you to catch your KO Sports Question of the Day on Good Morning Monterey Bay. I'll be with Rosie and Alex at 7:12 and on again at 5:35 with Dave Michaels on Flight 1080. KO Sports is brought to you by the Knox Garden Box. Get off the ground and grow your vegetables, flowers, and ornamentals anywhere you have a little sunshine. KNOXGardenbox.com. That's KnoxGardenbox.com.
My mother was very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign and she wasn't even really sure where she was at.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Well, we're just about ready to wrap our program up. Any final thoughts, Amy?
Everything good. Thank you, Billy. Thank you, Nan.
And Nan, how about you?
Well, I think that we have to learn the lessons from last 20 years, what has happened after we allowed China join WTO, after we gave so many our manufactured job opportunities in China, give our technologies in China, give American investors investment to China, what we have created. So I think this kind of negotiation with China need to be stopped. At least we don't have to give American taxpayers money to China to help them clean up their own pollution.
Well said. Hey, thank you both. Look forward to next week's program. Thank you for continuing our effort to educate the people of Santa Cruz. We appreciate it. This is China Uber Alice. You're listening to AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz. The news is next, and then Flight 1080.